everyone and welcome back to the channel. This week's video sees us in Flintshire, exploring some of the remarkable fortresses across North Wales. Our journey takes us to one of the first castles, built in Wales by King Edward, Longshanks I, which formed part of his chain of great fortresses across the north to subdue the Welsh people. Built between 1277 and 1284 and protected by a moat and the River Dee, from which it could be supplied under siege. Edward I chose the site with great care, ensuring access by sea for reinforcements and supplies. So join us whilst we explore the remains of this incredible and unusual fortress here at Flint Castle. The Ring of Iron is the name given to 10 castles that were built to encircle North Wales. These castles were built by Edward I, the King of England, in an attempt to control the lands and armies of the King of Wales. In building Flint Castle, over 2,000 workers were moved to the area, and an entirely new town was built in the process. This was to help the English king maintain control of the land he had built upon. Incredibly, the original streets of the medieval town are still visible today. This fortress has the distinction of being the first of King Edward I's ring of castles in North Wales, although it is often overlooked in favour of its big sisters at Beaumaris, Carnarvon and Conway. Flint is still an impressive structure with a layout that is unique in the British Isles. Walking up the modern path, you'll approach the castle with the southwest tower on the left and the Great Tower and Keep on the right. The keep on the right hand side really shows off the impressive thickness of the castle walls, showing us just how impenetrable the castle could be. There is a modern bridge that leads over the inner ditch and into the castle grounds. Flint was built in a medieval French style, and the castle was constructed using the most sophisticated medieval military architecture of 13th century Plantagenet England. It incorporated formidable defensive designs, features and luxurious accommodations that were befitting for a royal Welsh stronghold of King Edward I. The site of Flint Castle was carefully chosen for its strategic location, only a few mere miles of Chester, and the castle sits on a low peninsula that used to reach right into the estuary. It could easily be supplied by river or sea, and its harbour was protected by a defensive wall. The castle sits opposite to the English shore and from Shotwick Castle, a Norman medieval fortification near Cheshire. Before the course was changed in the 18th century, passage across the estuary at this point could be made directly by boats at high tide, and there is still evidence of a dock that would have been used to resupply the castle during a siege. Construction on the castle began in early 1277 under the direction of Richard of Chester. Thousands of men were employed to dig ditches around the castle and construct the new town. The wall started to go up in 1279 and work was well underway when James of St George, Edward's master mason in Wales, took over the project in 1280. He stayed here until around 1282, when the castle was largely complete, and he was then needed to oversee the work at nearby Redland Castle. The work finally finished in 1286, though it may have never fully reached its full potential. By this point, Edward had spent £6,000 building the fortress and town, as well as over £700 building the ditches. This was of course a rather large sum of money at the time. The first building is an unusually impressive feature. The main keep is actually an enlarged corner tower set off to one side of the inner bailey. It functioned as both a keep and a corner tower. There are a few unfamiliar features, and unusually for an Edwardian castle, there is no gatehouse. The gate was accessed via a drawbridge, and the keep itself overlooks the gate and would have helped guard the outer bailey. The entrance into the keep would have been at ground level and had an oddly long entrance passageway. The design with this style of keep between the outer and inner walls was not repeated anywhere else in the UK, However, it has been compared to some French castles, which Edward would have seen before he went on crusade. Weirdly enough, the keep didn't feature a portcullis, but I think the 7-metre thick walls had something to do with that. It was impressively well protected by its stone architecture, rather than defences. The steps leading up takes you to an outer vaulted gallery, equipped with 3 arrow slits and some small vents, and surrounding a central room, which light would have only been provided by the mentioned arrow slits. Whilst we walk at the very bottom of the keep, there is a well, above which there was a hole in the ceiling allowing water to be supplied to the upper floors. The basement had a barrel vaulted ceiling, which was lime washed to provide reflective light, but it was also illuminated by torches. Some vertical channels in the walls with chutes to the moat were used to clear out the latrines also from the upper floors. There were around 5 rooms on the first floor, all accessible from the large central room of the tower, one of which is thought to be a chapel. On an everyday basis, the Great Tower was the home of the constable, but it also housed the King's Chamber, which was completed in 1286, to add to its independence from the rest of the castle, and to provide the king with some privacy when he was in residence. It was also provided by its own well. When the castle passed into the hands of Edward in 1301, a new wooden structure was added to the top of the keep. I have to say the most fun part of visiting here is being able to experience the vaulted passage that runs all the way around and inside of the keep. The castle consists of a curtain wall enclosing an outer bailey with a second stronger wall surrounding the square inner bailey. The outer ward protected the main gate into the castle and acted as a type interface between the inner ward and the outside world. It was shaped rather like a funnel, allowing access via a single gatehouse into what was effectively a holding area, narrowing into a path that connected it into a gate into the inner ward, which was overseen by the battlements and by the southwest and southeast towers. It would have had buildings to house and feed the troops stationed there, together with stables for horses and a jail for holding prisoners. The inner curtain wall neatly skips around the keep and has 3 similar mural towers at 3 of its corners. The inner wall is mostly gone now, but it has been replaced by retaining walls. The best preserved of the 3 smaller towers is the northeast tower, which we're making our way to now. It would have originally have been 4 stories high. The rooms inside were polygonal, and it was designed to provide accommodation. Guests and servants were housed here, and this was indicated by the fireplaces on the second floor, with a chimney that leads right up to the battlements. What is fantastic though is being able to climb the now modern spiral staircase for views out over the battlements and across the estuary. On a beautiful day, it's just a wonderful view. Flint was a target right from the outset. Before it was fully constructed, it was under attack. The Welsh forces besieged Flint Castle, but they were rebuffed. In 1294 they returned under the command of Madog at Llewellyn. Battle was fierce and bloody, and the then constable of the castle was forced to set fire to Flint Castle to prevent its capture by the Welsh. It wasn't long until Flint was the centre of English attention again. In 1399, King Richard II of England had landed in Wales on July 24th after a military campaign in Ireland. He made his way across Wales to Flint, where he was met by Henry of Bolingbroke forces. Henry was prepared to lay siege to the castle, but on August the 19th surrendered and was sent to the Tower of London. Henry seized the crown and became King Henry IV of England. After repairs and partial rebuilding, the castle was again used as a defensive fortress. During the English Civil War, Flint Castle was held by the Royalists, but they also lost it to the Parliamentarians in 1647, after a 3-month siege. Thereafter, in accordance with Cromwell's destruction order, Flint Castle was slighted to prevent it from being used in future conflicts. The castle was an effective defensive stronghold that during the Civil War both Royalists and Parliamentary forces held. The new 1646 post-war government voted for the castle to be dismantled to prevent future use. The job was done so well that just after 6 years the castle is described as being buried in its own ruins. Much of the stonework was then demolished to prevent it being re-fortified, and a prison was built in the Outer Bailey in 1784 and was used right up until the early 20th century. Each of the towers here were different, although they all featured the same spiral staircases that led directly to the battlements. Each of them had their own functions. The Northwest Tower, also known as the Garrison Tower, had 4 points of access, which was useful for deploying troops to the battlements in a hurry, and its basement was probably the stores for weaponry. The gatehouse leads directly inside to the Inner Bailey, a large expanse of grass marked at the centre by the foundations of what apparently were later buildings. The buildings within the inner keep would have included a bakehouse, a brewhouse, kitchen, chapel and a hall. Both wells, the one in the inner ward and the one inside the keep, were fed by the freshwater brook. Uniquely, the castle had 2 moats. An inner moat protected the main castle and an outer moat protected the access from the town. Like the exterior grounds, the Inner Bailey can be quite marshy, and it would have been a moist floor for the daily activities of the castle dwellers and the workers. You wouldn't think it, being hidden away on the coastline and the mudflats of Flintshire, but Flint Castle is really quite extraordinary. And if you are into your castles or architecture, it truly is the perfect starting point for a North Wales castle crusade of your own. So that's it for this week. We would love it if you enjoyed the video, if you could hit that like button, click the notification bell and the subscribe button for more content like this coming soon. We also have links in our description for ways of supporting us and the channel down below. Or just click the Patreon button or memberships if you're interested. We'd like to say a big thank you to our pinned members for all of their encouragement and their support. So we'll see you in the next one. Till next time.